Hello and welcome to the Good Vibrations podcast. You're listening to me, Phyllis Brown, here on YouTube. One of the questions that I get asked about, well, a couple of questions I get asked about is who are my guides or why does this keep happening to me? Those are the two questions that really seem to get people coming to me just for guidance. And I thought I would do some little reviews throughout March to give you some pointers because they're two very different questions. So, the first thing we need to think about is why does this keep happening to me? And it is a question that is asked quite often with people who seem to be on a cyclical process where same situations keep popping up time after time after time. And they're not quite sure they keep popping up, and they've tried different techniques to negate that process, but they still seem to have um, these events or these situations coming back and coming back. I think the key thing to remember when we have recurring situations is that there's always a lesson to learn. And so, if a situation is always coming back, if you're always attracting the right kind of situation for your soul growth, then it can be really difficult and it can be really frustrating when you're always going through the same thing all the time. So, what you really need to do is stop and go, well, why is this happening to me? What is this situation? Why does it keep occurring? And why am I attracting the same person or the same type of people into my life? Because there will be something vibrationally in you that is attracting that event. I've had a really big epiphany just recently in regards to judgmentalism. And I've always prided myself on not being judgmental. And then I sort of had this epiphany about body shaming, which was something I don't feel I do for other people, but I know I've certainly been at the sharp end of the stick of body shaming, even as a young girl with a grandmother poking me in the tummy, going, "Oh, yes, look at that wee fat tummy." And those sorts of things sort of stick with you then through the school bullying and through different people coming into my life talking about my weight, being overweight, being fat, being ugly. All of that sort of things have occurred in my life. But I never really thought of myself as someone who was judgmental. And I suddenly had this epiphany around me judging myself because I've always been judged, but I'm also judging myself, judging what I'm wearing. Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? And so I've suddenly had this epiphany that I need to change myself and stop judging myself. So therefore, other people will stop judging me. And sometimes it can be habits that we create that create these cyclical processes in our life that we need to then really think about our behavior and how can I change my behavior to create a different outcome, because that's what you really want to do. You want to change your personal approach, how you look at things, how you deal with things in such a way that you then take a different approach and that changes the outcome and that lesson then goes. I think for many of my students or clients, when we have these repeat processes, it can be really, I'm going to say frustrating, but devastating, annoying, because we all think we're doing the work, but there is maybe just something that we are missing. And we need to be really honest with ourselves when we feel that we are doing something, but we're not quite getting the right result. So we need to take that deep breath and we need to be really honest with ourselves. And we then can go into a place of self examination and ask for that guidance. So then that comes to the second part of the questions that I get asked is, who are my guides? Who or what are my guides? Is it my family member? Is it my grandmother, my grandfather, whoever that loved one is? Because people are really attached to, obviously, their loved ones who pass over. So, from a really technical perspective, I was always taught back in Scotland in my mediumship classes that our loved ones, yes, will be in and around our energy, but they're definitely not our guides. They're just here helping us with a sense of comfort, because we get comfort when we know we have a loved one that is close by. And the other aspect that we need to think about with our loved ones is the aspect of just having them by our side doesn't necessarily mean that it is their job to have all the answers when we need them. And that can be quite difficult sometimes for people. They maybe had a member of the family who they would always go and share their concerns, get some feedback, and so they still want that relationship when that loved one's passed over. But that isn't necessarily what their job is. They've finished their job, they've completed their role here on earth. And so, by being in your energy, they're merely supporting you on a day to day basis with emotional love. But your guides do tend to be beings of light who have a skill set that can then support you with the challenge that you're going through. So, they're two very different vibrations. A guide would have wisdom that they want to share. And so when we have these events occurring all of the time, why does this keep happening? Why does this happen to me? And you ask that question, then we must sit really quietly, either with a notebook or just sitting and meditating softly, breathing softly, when we allow our guides, not our loved ones, but our guides to give us those insights. And it can just be one word. So for me, I had body shaming. And that really occurred with the death of a really famous Welsh rugby player. I was always compared to being this Welsh rugby player when I was at school, and the boys would call me his name. He's just passed, sadly, just passed away this year. And that got me thinking about, gosh, I remember being compared to him, likened to him physically, because he obviously was a big person. I was a big girl. And that then got me thinking. I thought, oh, why was that? And then the word body shaming came up. And I thought, oh, body shaming. Oh, yep, I get that. And then I sat with that word, and then I started to just go through and trace back to what would have been that first instance, which was when I was about 4, having an ice cream on the beach, and my grandmother poking me in my little fat tummy, saying I had a little fat tummy. I don't think her words were cruel. It was just something that she said. But that's that process. And out of that journey of just sitting and listening and recalling and reviewing different events on a timeline, I then suddenly became aware that actually I really judged myself really harshly on how I look or who I am or what I do, what I don't do. And so I've had to do some healing work on that. When we get our guidance from our guides, it can be just a simple word, a thought, or a feeling. It's maybe not a whole stream, a dialogue of words that will give you the complete answer. You have to do the work. But know that your guides are always there. And when we catch on to something, so for me, it was body shaming, then it was judgmentalism, then it was all these memories, then it was a healing process. And now I look at myself really differently. I see a very different Phyllis when I look in the mirror. Um, And that's really rewarding because there's aspects of that healing are really beginning to take shape now. And so the self body shaming or criticism or judgmentalism is waning. And so, therefore, that repeat process will start to also wane and dissipate. There's no easy answer. I think people, when they want to know about their guides, they want that really obvious, easy, must know answer. But our guides are very subtle. Those thoughts, those feelings, those words can be very, very subtle, and they don't necessarily always show us immediately which direction to go in, but your guides are there. And so I would say to people, when you have a question, make your question really concise, make it logical, make it simple. So simple and concise. And then give yourself time. So find a place, a time, an opportunity to ask that question and then sit and wait for the answer. Listen, feel, see, or hear what comes through when you ask that question because they will be listening. Then ask the next question and the next question. Keep writing down the guidance that you're given because then the answer will appear. It has to be a two-way conversation. We can't ask the universe, then blindly go on continuing what we're doing in our journey. We have to give them space and time to respond to our requests in such a way that we get the message, be it instant or be it one word at a time. It's going to come. It will come. So I hope that's given you some help in terms of guidance and soul journey and who our guides are. Our question for today from my lovely calendar is never give up on what you really want to do. A person with big dreams is more powerful than one with all of the facts. So it's a really interesting thing, something for you to think about and to ponder as well as who your guides are. Because if you have a big dream and your big dream isn't coming to you, then you need to ask your guides what you need to shift to allow that opportunity or that avenues of cooperation and evolvement and development to come through to you. It can't all be a one way street. So I hope you've enjoyed your podcast here on the Good Vibrations channel on YouTube. You've been listening to me, Phyllis Brown. As always, it's great to hear from you. Hopefully, I've given you some food for thought. And until the next time, take care of yourself. Bye for now.